Harald Malmgren, welcome back. How are you, buddy? Harald, so you're all over the different media places nowadays?
Yes, I've been asked to appear on a lot of different podcasts, but I'm trying to keep it down to just a handful.
Okay.
So much is going on, as you know. I mean, we have complete turmoil now between developments with the Russians and the energy, but it spreads all over. So I'm, as you know, as your listeners will know, I'm not going to spend time on the Forex market tomorrow, or
of course not,
or the S&P, but rather put it in a context.
Okay. All right. So I want to know what's front and center on your mind.
Number one, what is being underestimated everywhere is that this downturn that we're looking at is not just Europe or the US recession,
global,
but it's global, and it is most severe actually in China. China has reached a point where it is unlikely to have any growth at all, economic growth this year. They may fudge and get some 2% number, but the demand for their exports is weakening dramatically, and their domestic demand is simply inadequate to keep the economy stable.
Will they relent on zero COVID policy for these reasons you just stated?
There's some doubt. Xi Jinping is so much obsessed by total control that he's more interested in control of everybody and their behavior and COVID or any other interruption than anything else. He's in a mode of thinking that was somewhat like the old Soviet Union. Only what's acceptable can be said, no action can be taken. So they're frozen right now. They are fumbling around for ways to ease up the economy, but
hey, Harald, I want to ask you something. You know, it showed pictures of Putin. You know, anytime he had a meeting, he was like 10,000 feet away from whoever he was talking to, and Xi is making that trip to meet Putin at that conference, and it's the first time he's made a trip in 2 years. So maybe they both have a deep fear of COVID, and they're Xi is projecting it on his whole nation, although it does give him the excuse to have control, have people use less utilities, maybe eat less, and maybe get them prepared for war and blame it all on the US.
Yeah.
What do you think?
That is probably what's on his mind now. Regarding war, there's not Xi Jinping cannot do much before this October plenary meeting, where he's hoping to be made leader for life, but there is some resistance. So he is dealing with not a smooth transition. The big surprise right now is Putin seems his health has improved quite a bit, so he's not doing those long tables anymore. Now, what's important to understand here is that China, the four big engines of growth for many years now, many decades, China, Japan, Germany, and to a lesser extent, South Korea as the industrial exporters. And their export of manufacturers has been an engine of growth for everybody else. I think we've now just turned a point where that mercantilist type of policy has about run its course, and that we will not see a major rebound in manufacturers' demand on the global scale. During this recession, the U.S. is in recession, whether we want to define it or not, but mild recession so far. But China is going to go into a deeper downturn. And of course, Europe is going to go into a horrific downturn this winter because of energy. The emerging markets are all going to be beaten up by the very strong dollar. So I think everybody has to prepare for a hard landing. And
how do you do that?
You really have to think about what assets to hold and what to dump.
Okay.
And,
do you like gold in this environment?
Right now, to me, the no-brainer is investing in longer maturity treasuries, because they, no matter what, I mean, if you bought just 10 years, now you can almost assume a gain in 1 year of a 15% in value, at least.
So you think yields are peaking? You get the coupon plus some capital gains.
That's correct, and you won't be, and you won't be able to. Well, its capital gains may be larger for some foreign investors, depending on how much they hedge, because the dollar will stay strong and may even get somewhat stronger. Now, the second point is, some time ago, and in particular in the show you were referring to, the Blockworks, I said Yellen wants 110 for the dollar index or higher. She wants that pressure on to help keep the stock market up by encouraging large institutional investors worldwide to stay in, but also it imposes severe pressure on China, and that's part of the policy.
It also reduces inflation because the dollar's been strong, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we got to 110, Harald. Is there a chance this might be it, and Yellen, Yellen may not get her will for 120?
Someone said I said 120. That was misquote, but I have been saying it. That 110 is not necessarily the limit.
Okay.
She would like to push it a little bit more. And by the way,
I think it is.
Because of that, I don't expect Powell to talk about currencies, because he knows that's Yellen's game, and so he's staying in his sandbox.
Isn't that the topic of his speech coming up, I think, tomorrow? Talking about currency?
If he does, it will be very careful, because I don't think he wants an open conflict with Yellen.
Okay.
No.
Does he want a digital currency for the U.S. so they could track everything we do?
It's premature. It's under under heavy discussion, but that's a long way off, and we've got an election coming, and we've got another election after that, and a lot of resistance, particularly on the Republican side, with the balance of opinion moving, against the government knowing too much about everything individuals do.
Okay, so really the narrative I'm getting with you the first 10, 15 minutes is the there's going to be a global recession. China's, we're already in one here in the U.S.
Right.
The real, China, which was given credit for pulling us out of the Great Recession in 2008, at least partly because they were still growing, could actually be the ones exacerbating our recession with their problems. And Europe, it's obvious to everyone what they're going through. So if you talk about owning treasuries, even though they've been in a bear market, it sounds like that's where money will flow to during these times. And will equities be under severe pressure while bonds rally? Because they didn't the first stage. Actually, bonds led the decline before the stock market peaked. But now you think that they're going to act the way they used to in the old days, where you get a sell-off in stocks and people buy bonds.
Yeah, well, let's put it simply. We have a recession. It will not be short. For the U.S., it's going to run at least through next year, because the demand is going to be weaker and weaker on the consumer side. And as far as Powell is concerned, he's not going to say it publicly, but my reading is that he wants a pretty strong recession. He does want pain. He does want to see, he can't say it, but he does want the unemployment rate up. So
he has kind of said that there would be pain, and
but
there will be.
But he's using the pain as a word to obscure the real deal. But what I'm telling you is he wants to see numbers that show broad pain across the spectrum, including even the labor market.
Right.
So partly he wants the shock effect. Now, as regards the equity market, we'll still bounce around for a few more weeks, maybe affected by who knows what, including Treasury trying to keep the equity market where it is until we get through the midterm elections. But if you take, where will the equity market be early next year? I think the argument can be either we're going down with the S&P to around 3,000, or maybe even as low as 2,200.
Okay. So I know a lot of, I hear that 3,000 target bandied about. That's actually where we were pre-COVID. That was a prior high before COVID.
Okay. But we might go lower. Now, the bright side to all of this is the U.S. recession will not be as deep as Europe or China or the emerging markets, and will probably come out ahead of the others gradually. But the damage to the credit markets is going to be severe, because worldwide there's a huge amount of debt that is denominated in dollars, and so we're going to see a lot of defaults, insolvencies in the banks and the shadow banks.
So a banking crisis, Harold, and where does it start in Europe? I mean, there's been talk about Italian banks for years now, and European banks that did not clean up their balance sheets like the U.S. did. Could that be where the fire starts? Last time it was here because of mortgages.
Yeah, may well be, because right now you will see very soon, in weeks, a battle between the Bundesbank and the Bank of Italy.
You mean the ECB or the Bundesbank?
Well, it'll be the Bundesbank giving orders to the ECB. Yeah, you can say the ECB, but I mean,
they want to bring back the Deutschmark and tell the rest of Europe to go to hell?
I don't know how they'll resolve it, but I think Lagarde doesn't really know what she's doing in this. She's an attorney, But the Bundesbank, anyway, wants to force a crisis with Italy. And that's going to be really rough, because we have a new Italian leader coming in who is not experienced with anything like this. So it could be chaotic. We're going to see a lot of fragmentation within the EU and the ECB as the pains of the energy crisis plays out.
Well, that's Putin's goal, to split NATO. Which countries would be most amenable to breaking with NATO and doing a deal with Putin so they don't freeze to death this winter? Are there any candidates?
Yeah, definitely. And unfortunately, they're the big ones.
Germany?
Germany and Italy at the beginning, but France under pressure. Spain and Portugal.
So NATO dissolves this winter.
Yeah, they all have some different ways of relieving the pressure. France maybe can work its way through. There'll be more gas from Algiers, for example, coming into Europe, into Spain. But it's going to be political fragmentation, a lot of arguments. The Baltic Sea countries will hold together militarily and in economic policy, and they will be a kind of separate bloc. And NATO will have a face and a name, but the operational part of NATO will be the Nordic countries, Poland.
So the people willing to fight and even go through hardship, like being in a war or being on a border with Putin, because they've gone through it and they have a long memory of what it was like to be under, you could call it Russia or the Soviet Union's thumb, will stand up, whereas the democracies like France, who remembers Germany, never really lived, or Germany should have a long memory because they were split in half, but they're still going to fold.
Yes. Germany, and it won't be one leader in Germany. It's just the parties. It's a coalition of parties, and they don't have any strong single leader. So
well, if they're showing all the advances that Ukraine has been making on the ground on their counteroffensive. So whatever is happening militarily, if what you're saying happens this winter, Putin wins.
Yeah, he may lose on the ground in terms of battlefield, but he wins in terms of the damage to the cohesion of Europe. And he gets the upper hand in negotiations about the next few years. So it'll be a really interesting period.
That can't be good for the dollar, Harold. I know there are, economic reasons why the dollar could continue to be a wrecking ball, but I just can't see, this is the coalition developed by Biden. He's there for another 2 years despite the midterms. It can't be good for the dollar if we see a dissolution of NATO and Germany now cooperating and cutting deals with Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, I think his team have no clue how to deal with Europe at all.
Well, why don't you take a ride over to the White House and straighten them out before we're in,
Look, I've been close to this with many presidents, sometimes working in, and on several occasions, I was asked to come back in as National Security Director. But this team right now, they're inexperienced and uninterested in what's happened in the last 20 or 30 years. They have new ideas of their own. So I would have to say they're not fit for the purpose.
All right. I want to bring up something I heard. Did you ever meet Henry Kissinger? Do you know him?
Oh, I know him well.
Okay. So I saw an interview. I didn't conduct it, but I saw an interview and, you know, what's happening on the battlefield. And Kissinger said he met with Putin several times. I think you met Putin. And
yes, I have.
Okay, so he was saying, you know, they were talking about potential escalation, you know, taking it to another level, maybe even tactical nukes. And Kissinger said that Putin's doctrine is de-escalation through escalation.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes.
So are you worried about him, you know, going to the next level since he can't do it on the ground conventionally?
Yes, I have been beating that drum for quite a while, but can't get anybody around Biden to think about it. But
they're going to use that reactor, or are they going to use one of their own?
The reactor is a sideshow.
Okay.
Putin does have capability to use small-scale nuclear weapons to teach a lesson to everybody, scare everybody in Washington, and force a bigger discussion among the great powers what to do.
De-escalate through escalating.
Yeah, and he's been thinking about that since even before he became president. So, you know, I know a lot about that escalation, de-escalation, because I was deeply involved in the Cuban Missile Crisis in those decisions in the war room of the Pentagon. And ever since, I've been, let's say, a semi-expert on that entire process of when and how such weapons should be used. And I do think Putin is actively thinking about it all the time, looking for an opportunity to freak out Washington and London and other countries. There is a danger and a great reluctance on the part of the Biden people to address this more directly. The British have quietly been encouraging opening arms control talks with Russia. And the Biden people say, now we're busy with elections. We don't want to deal with it. But I think there is a real danger.
Okay. Do you think Trump shared nuclear information with Putin?
I don't know.
I'm not getting political. I'm just talking about the papers that were found there.
Yeah, maybe yes, maybe with the Saudis, and maybe it wasn't Trump. Maybe it was his son-in-law. You know, who knows who actually did what? Right. But something bad has happened, because there wouldn't be all this fuss about pieces of paper without something more deep. But we don't know yet. No one can judge whether you're a Trumper or not. It's just impossible to know what it is that is creating all this pain and worry in Washington in the security area.
Okay. All right. So definitely precarious times we're living in, Harold. If you could give people one piece of advice on riding through this historic period, what would it be?
I think basically there are only really two options, and they're not alternatives. I think, yes, be long in Treasuries, because you'll definitely see rates coming down as the recession subsides. So it may take a year, but second, be heavily in metals and and areas like fertilizer, because we don't have enough, and eventually all of that will have real value no matter what else happens to the operations of the economy.
Okay. Crisis Investing by Harald Malmgren.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I really appreciate talking to you as always, and I'm glad that you select us as being one of the places that you come and share your wisdom.
Well, it's you, Dale, that got me in this, and so I like talking to you. So,
thank you, Harald. All right, and be safe, and I guess you know what we have to do is you don't know if you have faith till you need it, and you know, right? So you stay close to your family. You have people you can depend on, also help, and community is probably more important than ever before. It's in 70 years.
Yeah, the big concern for the next couple of years is going to be local communities, local stability at a time when everybody's unhappy and restive. So it's exactly right. Look after your neighbors and your friends and your family.
Yes.
And don't worry so much about the world, because you can't do much about the turmoil.
And don't tell anyone where you've buried your silver and gold in the backyard.
No.
Right?
Well, that's correct.
Thank you so much, Harald. Great talking to you. Appreciate your perspectives, and we'll catch up in the winter, see how things are unfolding. All right, buddy?
Good.
All right. Harald Malmgren, everyone. Follow him at Hal's Rethink. Go to his website, malmgren-si.org, and his daughter Pippa's with him. He's got a lot of great advisors, and read what his papers, and you'll be prepared both economically and geopolitically. So that's a wrap, everybody. You could join the team in 15 minutes for the Morning Edge. Remember, in these times, don't just count your pips, count your blessings. We'll see everyone to wrap it up for TGIF Friday. Adios. Thanks again, Harald.
Right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye, buddy.
Hey traders, this is Blake Morrow with ForexAnalytix. Thanks for stopping by our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like these videos, share them, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of the content that we provide here for free. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you in the next video.